automobiles, you may have heard the expression that they just don't build them like they used to, or maybe you've even used it yourself. Well, when it comes to the 2023 Toyota 4Runner, that's not the case. In fact, this vehicle, despite a facelift in 2014, has actually remained relatively unchanged throughout production, but still managed to be a very capable off-road vehicle. And over time, you may have expected sales to decline, when in fact, they've actually increased. In its first full sale year for 2010, they sold just over 46,000 units. In 2016, 2 years after that first facelift, they then broke the six-figure mark. Then, in 2021, they had their best sales year ever so far, with over 144,000 units sold. So, the question is, why do people keep buying the 4Runner? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. So the Toyota 4Runner has a base model starting price of $39,555, and that ranges all the way up to the four-wheel drive TRD Pro, which is what we have here, and that's priced at $53,270. Now they have one powertrain option, a 4-liter V6, across the entire spectrum of 4Runners, along with a 5-speed automatic transmission, which has remained unchanged throughout the entire production run since 2009. Now, the main differences between the various models, I would say, comes down to the off-road performance, along with some of the various interiors and technologies that have been available throughout the different spectrums. Now, today we're going to be mainly highlighting the TRD Pro and all of its off-road capabilities. But before we give you all the details, first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's video is sponsored by Land Air Sea. Keep tabs on all your valuable assets from the palm of your hand. Remember, with Land Air Sea, theft is temporary. Visit landairSea.com to order your Land Air Sea GPS unit for your classic vehicle.
Moving on to the exterior of our 2023 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, we have this beautiful orange color. That is the TRD Pro exclusive solar octane. And one of the best features about this color specifically is the fact that this, again, matched with the size of the truck, makes it really easy to find the truck in parking lots day and night. So that's one of my favorite features. Now, right off the bat, you'll notice it has a very stout and rugged appearance to it. And one of the cool parts is the TRD Pro actually has about a half-inch taller, not including the roof rack, than its other 4Runner cousins. And underneath, you're looking at about a total of about 9.6 inches of ground clearance, about 6/10 more than the standard 4Runner. The general appearance here, you'll notice we have a lot more black, including a exclusive TRD sort of Toyota black grille here, which I think looks better than a lot of the other standard models. And then underneath, we even have a TRD aluminum skid plate that is, of course, there to help with off-road, and make sure that you don't ding up the important engine components that are sitting in the front of the car, or any of your suspension for that matter. Another important feature, we have some black TRD wheels. These are 17 inches on the side, some LED fog lights standard across the newer 4Runner board, and because this is the off-road capable version, you even have an improved approach angle of 33 degrees, which is a 3-degree increase over previous model years. As we come to the side, you can see we've got quite a bit of mud here, as there's a little bit of rain happening here in Phoenix as we wanted to take this off-road, and we have lots more black badging going on. We have some mud flaps, lots of mud itself on the side of our TRD Pro, and our big old roof rack, which is actually factory equipped, TRD Pro, and then again, more of our wheels. But the cool part about this is we have a TRD tuned front suspension, but then we also have Fox suspension with remote reservoirs. and you can see the massive remote reservoir. It's kind of hard to see right now with all the mud that we have on it, but they're there, and I promise it's a huge improvement over the standard 4Runner in terms of what you can get from a driving experience. As we come around to the rear, you can see we have a little bit of an overview of our hatch, our cool window that goes up and down, and of course some more standard sort of 4Runner TRD badging, along with some buttons in the back to actually raise and lower the window as you see fit. So that's a quick look on the exterior. It looks absolutely fantastic, and of course the TRD Pro color changes every year if you wanted another option, but that's a quick look at the exterior. Now it's time to take a look at the engine. So, popping the hood on our 4Runner here, you can see that hood scoop's actually not functional, and we have some nice hood struts that keep it held up for us. What you'll find here is a 4-liter naturally aspirated V6 making 270 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque. Now, the interesting part about this motor is the fact that it's been with Toyota since 2002. In 2009, it actually received an update to add VVT, which is what we have here, and coincidentally, that is also the first year of when the 4Runner came out, first model year being 2010. And that's pretty interesting. This motor has actually remained unchanged throughout the entire production of this, and that's unfortunate because the EPA rating for this motor is actually just 16 city and 19 highway, which is not very impressive, and obviously it would be nice to have just a little bit more torque, a little bit more power for going on the trails. But again, this engine is actually standard across the board, whether you buy the base model or the TRD Pro. No matter the model year, this is the engine that was available. Now there's a couple different packages. The base models, of course, are 2-wheel drive only. Then there is a full-time 4-wheel drive option that comes available later that has a knob for selecting. And of course, in the TRD Pro, we have the part-time 4-wheel drive system, which has the stick for managing whether you want to go into 4 high, 4 low, as opposed to the sort of auto select when everything is electronically shifted. So that's a quick look at the powertrain there. Nothing particularly special. It's definitely a dated powertrain that feels like it's lacking in a couple different ways, but let's go ahead and let's move on to the interior. So on the inside of the interior, we were instantly transported to 2009. Now there was a slight interior refresh in 2014, but most of what was changed was things like the gauge cluster along with various other miscellaneous switches. Some stuff like the AC here and even the knobs are the exact same as you could have bought on a 4Runner in 2009. Now, let's talk about what's currently going on in our TRD Pro. So first off, these seats are finished in what Toyota calls Softex. It's essentially a synthetic leather that is solely meant to be more spill resistant, and it looks pretty good, feels pretty good, all things considered texture wise. And of course, the added benefit of having an off-road vehicle with easy to clean seats is always nice. Now there are some other TRD benefits like the shift knob and even the embroidered headrests that are specific to our TRD Pro model, but a lot of this is actually going to be shared with a lot of the other vehicles, including our 8-inch display here, which helps manage either our audio, map, things like that. Now, one of the cool parts is let's talk about some of the off-roading bits that we have in here. So starting with the top here, what we have is we actually have our crawl control, which has 5 different speeds. It's currently in the low position. Both this and the terrain manager, along with the diff lock and 8-track, are all only available in 4 low. So let's talk about what some of those things do. So our crawl control here, the first and second speed, of course, can be used in uphill. Everything else, first through 5, can be used in downhill. Crawl control is essentially a way where the computer will manage the 4Runner to automatically maintain a consistent speed, meaning you don't have to put your foot on the gas pedal and the truck will just roll through. Now, the downside of that is the first speed has a terrible sound that is not good for your mechanically sympathetic ears, even though that is normal for the 4Runner to make. So despite what your mechanically sympathetic ears are telling you, this 4Runner is not broken. It's just using the first speed of crawl control. All the various noises that you hear coming from the front are all perfectly normal, and that's just to help you go downhill or uphill. Next to that, we have the terrain mode, which is there to be selective and help the car sort of figure out how it's going to traverse different situations from sand, mud, moguls, things like that. Additionally, you can turn your traction control off. Of course, a lot of that and safeties and assists are all turned off automatically when you put the truck into 4 high or 4 low. Now over here we have A-Track, which is solely sort of a traction control system solely for 4-wheel drive. So that's going to be helping you out. Like I said, it turns off the regular traction control, but you can turn that on if you feel like you need a little bit more with the 4-wheel drive system. And then of course we have a diff lock. So as good as the crawl control is, it does have some issues with going up things like sand and steeper hills, but you can lock the diff and that'll do a lot of the same benefits of what some of the crawl control and consistent stuff has. Gives things a little bit more speed, and the diff lock will actually actually get you out of a lot of ruts that maybe you might think crawl control is more suitable for. The diff control is also a good way so you can sort of mix and match some of the 4Runner features to get out of whatever off-road situation that you're in. Now we also of course have this awesome sunroof which has all of its controls up in the top here as well. So moving back, I mentioned we have that TRD shift. Now the TRD Pro actually has a part-time 4-wheel drive system, which is what this second stick is here. This is for managing our 4-wheel drive options. So normally it's in 2-wheel drive, which is a cool feature. It helps a little bit with gas mileage. But of course you can put it in 4 high, which is something that you can shift on the fly up to about 50 miles an hour. And then if you want to put it into 4 low, of course, like every vehicle ever, you do have to bring the vehicle to a stop, and then you're able to put it over into neutral, and then 4 low, same thing to get it back out of, and of course back into high 4, of course, all of which the manual touches on. Next to that, we do have some sort of fake carbon fiber. This isn't real by any means, it's just styled to look that way. And we have some heated seats, along with the control for actually a rear glass, which also goes up and down as well. Over here, same steering wheel that's been around on the 4Runner forever. It's been some slightly different texture changes, along with the addition of some of the driver assists that now exist. Standard sort of gauge cluster that has a few animations along with some of the different driving modes. 20-mile-an-hour speedometer differences, so 50 and those types of things aren't actually marked in there. There's just kind of assumed that you have to count the ticks to sort of guess every tick is 2 miles an hour, which is a little awkward, but you'll get used to it. And of course, there is a multifunctional display in the middle that you can use to adjust to either follow your fuel economy, or you can use as a digital speedo if you wanted to do so yourself. Now, one of the cool things I wanted to mention with some of the various technology packages is we have the screen here, which also helps when we're using some of our other drive modes. If you have the truck in 4 low, what you actually get is an inclinometer, or something that essentially measures incline angle, and it'll also turn on all of the cameras, both front and rear, that allow you to see where you're going while you're off-roading. So that's pretty much a quick look at the interior. The next step would be to climb in the back and see how we fit back there. Okay, so now I'm sitting in the back seat of our 4Runner, and you can see my head just about touches the top, but one of the clever things they did is there's actually a little bit of an indent here that gives you a little bit more headroom for people sitting in the back. So I'm about 6 foot even for reference, and you can see my head just about touches, but it's not too bad all things considered. There's actually quite a bit of legroom in here, especially with these seats set up for me as someone who's about 6 feet tall. As far as features go, you have some vents in the back for people who sit back here, along with some charging ports, which is just one of those nice basic luxuries. Other than that, it's pretty much no frills, nothing crazy. Very much usable as a family vehicle if you wanted to do so. Carries adults just fine, unless of course they're insanely tall, but you'd probably put them in the passenger seat. There is no third row on this vehicle, so there's nothing to test back there, just the back hatch. But overall, it's not bad for the back seat. So with that, let's go ahead, hop in the driver's seat again, and we'll take it for a drive. Okay, so what's it like to drive the 4Runner? So on today, it's fairly slippery as we're keeping it in 4 high, but the 4Runner has no problem either bringing it around and makes it actually really smooth over bumps. Like I mentioned, one of the cool things about the TRD Pro is it handles bumps so much better than the other standard versions, and that has a lot to do with the TRD tuning and of course the Fox suspension with remote reservoirs. Now of course there is 4 low available for this vehicle, along with diff locks and even crawl control, but we haven't needed any of that today with the mud and stuff that we've been going in, which again, mud, sand sometimes require more of a high-speed approach rather than to the low speed or consistent control that you get from using that. Now, what's it like to generally drive from steering response and things like that? So it leans a little bit more towards the truck side than what I would say standard Toyota SUVs, which makes sense because it does kind of share that platform. But it's fairly easy to use. It's not, I would say, unapproachable for those who aren't totally familiar with full-size vehicles. I'd still say it's rather usable. And there's a lot of engine noise if you can't hear it in the background. The thing's not quiet by any stretch of the means. And that's one of the biggest downsides, that for something that is a larger, newer vehicle, typically there's a lot more soundproofing. Not so much the case with the 4Runner. That being said, everything's generally very comfortable, ergonomic, whatever you're really looking for. This is pretty great as far as a general SUV approach, and it offers all of the unique off-road capabilities with everything in really easy reach of the driver. And again, it's not necessarily new and great, but it is functional. So if you don't need the latest and greatest, this interior is perfect for that. So nothing too special. It's not a performance vehicle, but it does improve on the most important things, being how it handles over bumps and general off-road capability, and is just fine in terms of keeping up with regular traffic despite not getting the best fuel economy. So, in conclusion, the 2023 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro has a ton of off-road capability and has all of the benefits and utility of an SUV. The exterior is very rugged and stout-looking, as you would want from a vehicle like this, but the interior and the powertrain leave a lot to be desired. The interior, although a bit dated, is still functional, so if you don't need the latest and greatest, you can easily get by. However, there is a fair amount of engine noise and road noise that still makes its way into the cabin. As for the powertrain, which is possibly the worst offender, it is a Toyota tried and true reliable drivetrain. However, the lack of horsepower for such a massive displacement, along with terrible fuel economy figures, means it's not a great option to have, and even though the sales figures would tell you otherwise, it's really not a great pairing for a vehicle like this, especially in a day and age where everything seems to have 6-speed, automatic transmissions, 8 speeds, and even 10 speeds. It would have been nice to see some sort of update either in the powertrain or transmission side, especially when the current Toyota Tundra actually has a twin turbocharged V6 along with a 10-speed automatic transmission as standard. That being said, if you're still considering the Toyota 4Runner, ultimately you need to go to a Toyota dealership and take one for a test drive and determine if it's the right vehicle for you. So with that, that's going to be the end of the video. Feel free to let us know your thoughts on the 2023 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, or if you already have one, let us know down below. If you enjoyed the video, could hit that like button for us. We really appreciate it, and consider subscribing for more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching.